Hey guys, RC here. Going to do something a little different today. We're going to do a review and a walkthrough of an older game, and I'm doing this for some of the guys in the online league that I play that use this game. I had done a recruiting tutorial in the past, several years ago, before the advent of YouTube came about, which shows my age, and you actually had to download a game file to follow along, and it had a corresponding audio file for you to listen to. So pretty ancient technology. So since I've started doing a few of these YouTube videos just for fun, figured I would update my tutorial into the 21st century. So starting off, this is a game called Bullbound College Football. The producer of this game is Grey Dog Software, and Arlie Ron is the owner of that company and the designer of this game in particular. The game came out in 2005, so it is an older game. Now, before you turn off the video immediately because it's so old, it's not a video game. It's not a graphics game like Skyrim or, a game that you're used to, Doom, things of that nature. It's a text-based sports simulator. So basically, it's a lot of numbers and stats and algorithms that play the game out. You don't actually watch anything. So give it a chance. If you like sports, this is, in my opinion, the best college football game on the market. And again, we're just going to kind of walk through this and just kind of touch on some of the highlights. And I'm already knowing that I'm not going to make everybody happy with this because I'm not going to show them how to go 14-0 every season, and they're likely going to want to quit or something. But hey, I can only do so much. So let's take a look. I have started this league off. I have taken control of Michigan. Now you notice it's the Michigan Panthers instead of the Michigan Wolverines. I do have a logo pack installed that is pretty available. The team names are defaulted to something other than the real names because of copyrights. There is one particular file floating around on the internet if you can find it. I believe it's called Icy's Pack, ICY''S, and he created that in 2006 or 2007, not long after the game was created, and it creates all the correct conferences. Now, you can use Microsoft Access to go in and edit. You can change teams, you can change conferences, you can change conference layouts. So it is a little intimidating if you're not sure how to do that, like me, to go in and do those kind of things. So I will not touch on that. I'm just going to worry about the playthrough itself. So we've created this league. You can see here is the timeline on the right-hand side. So we're starting off the beginning of the season in training camp. And it gives you the list of things that you'll do and what week that those happen. So every time that you click the advance button or you play a segment of the game, it moves forward 1 week. During the season, that will move ahead 1 game. So in this week, we're going to set budgets and your recruiting service. Now, everything revolves around your stage detail button. That brings you to this screen. So we can and there's a checklist for you to make sure you do everything that needs to be done in a given week. And every week you'll have different things listed up here. So we're going to check our email. So this is welcome to the training camp stage. This email will help you get started. So it gives you some basic information. And you can read through that. I'll leave it up there for just a second. Once we get out of that, then we go back to the stage details. We can evaluate our team roster here. We can break it down by all of our players, offensive players, defensive players, then by each individual position. We can look at personal statistics, attributes, skills, offensive and defensive, and special teams. We can view player development, and all that changes the numbers that you're looking at, and everything in this game is relative to how your players play and develop. We'll get into that a little bit later on when I'm actually setting depth charts and things like that. Team expectations from your AD. Well, this kind of gives you your breakdown from your boss. And again, you can set the game up to where you get fired. if you are not performing well. So it tells you your rival up here. Of course, for Michigan, it's Ohio State, your colors, your stadium capacity, who your head coach is, your best offensive player, defensive player. Everything in the game is color-coded. So blue is the best, green is second, yellow is average, then there's an orange, and then red is the worst. So you can keep that in mind as you're looking at things. This gives you your current schedule for the season, which at the beginning of the season is only your conference games and maybe a non-conference game that carried over from the previous year. How many players of each class that you have, and a historical record. So this is nice as you've played several seasons and you've accumulated some stats here that you can kind of look at a nutshell how you've done. So we're going to come out of that. The expectations, we're projected to finish in 7th place. Our recruiting class was number 42 in the nation. That's last year's recruiting class. We have an average prestige of 55, and our strength of schedule is 62nd in the country. Not too good for Michigan. Let's see. So these you're going to bounce around between. I always look to try to get a recruiting service first. Now, there's a long list, but what you'll notice is over here on the map, the country is divided up into regions. So, of course, Michigan is up here in the Midwest region. And you see the little arrow that tells us our current selection is Investigators, Inc. And a little bit about them, they're an average service, and there again is that color coordination. Now, in your recruiting, you only have a red, a yellow, and a blue for each region. What I recommend is you adjust your recruiting service or scouting service depending on what level program you have. If you are a Sunbelt team in the in the low prestiges of 30 to 40, I would always go with the red. In the 50s, maybe you want to go with the yellow. And if you're a high level program where you're going to be recruiting nationally, go with the best that you can. Now, I'm going to go ahead and select them. It looks like I have enough money. It costs $90,000 a year for this program, and I'm going to save that. Then we're going to come back out, and I'm going to go to the budget, and then this breaks down everything that you need for the season. So this breaks down how much money you're going to put out per week into each recruiting region, how much you're going to invest for each position, your staff, your medical staff, they keep your players healthy and on the field. Your strength and conditioning coach, they keep your players developing and bulking up and becoming better players. Academic tutors help keep them academically eligible with grades, hopefully. Your coordinators are hard-coded in here because that's done separately during the coach hiring phase. And then college scouting, this is your scouting budget to scout your next opponent and maybe get some additional information on them. This gives your total budget and how much you have left over. Now, you only have this much money per week to deal with in recruiting, so you have to balance this. The goal, of course, is to max out all of these categories, your medical, strength, and academics, and eventually max out everything else behind that. Typically, if I'm looking to cut anything with Michigan, as noted there in the Midwest, so I want them to be the max, which is $45,000, and I will drop everybody else down to the minimum of $15,000. I'll do most of my recruiting in my home region. So that gives me a little bit more money to play with. I can spend a little bit more money on quarterbacks and running backs and receivers. Well, let's do a suggest, and that's going to balance it. So that puts everybody at 30 or 40. So then I can come back, and that's defaulted. Those have all popped up, and that's used up the rest of my budget. So you can suggest. It will give you some basic numbers to start, and then you can adjust from there. I like this because I'm going to be doing all my recruiting in the Midwest. I will have a little bit of money to go out and get a player if they're interested in me enough. I'll have a lot of money to spend at each position, and I'm right in the middle for these right now, but that's the best I can afford. So make sure you save after every screen that you change anything. And we have finished this. I've picked out my blue recruiting service. I've set my budget and got it where I want it. So we're going to advance the week. Now at this point, you would go to your online button, and then there would be an option, which I can't do because I'm not in an online league now, and there would be an option to export right at the top. And then you would go to the league website and export that file that is created. You would not advance the week. You would just do your export. The commissioner would import your file, run the week himself, and then give you a new file to download, and then your next file would show week 2. In a solo league like we're replicating here, we advance ourselves. It gives you a warning, yes, and now we jump to week 2. So there again, a new set of instructions, a new weekly checklist, setting philosophies, what to do, it basically walks you through, again, informational emails. Again, you can look at your depth chart to see what your strengths and weaknesses are. So we've got a pretty good quarterback. Oh, let me change an option here. I do not like that. I like to do the 1 to 10. So we'll save that. Good. All right, so going back, so now it's changed. So we have an 8 out of 8 quarterback, a 2 out of 4, a 3 out of 6, and a 1 out of 4. An 8 out of 8 running back. And again, you can go into each player, and then they have a plethora of stats. So his accuracy, his touch, these are on a scale of 100. He can't run very well, so picture a pocket quarterback like a Tom Brady. Doesn't have good hands, so you won't want him running, halfback option passes where he runs out for a pass. Won't be returning punts or kicks. Durability, that's the ability to stave off injury and stay on the field. Endurance, how many plays he can play without getting tired. Adaptability is how well he can play other positions or play out of position. Arm strength, so he's got a really good arm, not very fast, not very agile. Acceleration is that first step burst. Speed is overall speed, so this guy's slow. Not very strong, can't jump very well. Instincts play a big role for a quarterback. Aggressiveness, discipline, intelligence, and work ethic. So you can read up on all of these. There are places that you can read up on this information, what each one means, over at the Grey Dog forums, for example. Now, it is a college game, so players will transfer. So morale comes into play. If they don't play enough as underclassmen, freshmen and sophomore, they may decide to transfer away from your school. Even if they're going to be your starter the next year, they may leave anyway. You'll have a record of past years here, of stats that, again, you can change from passing, rushing, and you can scroll through all that. He was not ranked coming out of high school, and that's because he's the first player excuse me, the first season, so there's no previous history here. So the key parts this week is we want to set our offensive and defensive formations and philosophies. So again, this was 2005, so things like the spread option are not in this game. You have the option attack, run and gun, smash mouth, vertical passing, and West Coast. I would recommend never using option. There are some interesting things with the option. This would be like the flex bone or the wishbone. If you followed college football back in the 70s, Nebraska and Oklahoma were the pioneer teams of this that ran it to perfection, basically. There are some issues with the game, and it does not work very well. There are some suggestions on how you can tweak things to maybe make it work, but for the most part, it's been determined that that is a busted formation or option. Run and gun, this is, they use quad, shotgun, spread formation, a lot of 4 wide receiver single back sets, much like Florida ran with Tim Tebow, something along those lines. Smash mouth, this is going to be your I formation, your pro-style offense. Double tight ends with a fullback, Then you're going to have your vertical passing, which is, again, a lot of quads and shotgun and trip formations, no fullback. A little more of a precursor to the modern NFL systems. Focus on medium and deep passing. And up here, you'll notice they give strengths and weaknesses for your team. And then right here, it kind of tells you what you need to do that. So you can evaluate your team and see what fits best. And you can change this every year depending on the personnel that you have. And then lastly, the West Coast, which is a pro set and a single back. This is what the West Coast offense of the San Francisco 49ers, the short passing, short to medium passing game. Looks like we don't have a very good fullback. I've used run and gun, I've used smash mouth, I've used West Coast. I don't like vertical. I think you have to have a very accurate and touch passer to do that. But that's just my preference. So again, you can choose what you want. We're going to go ahead and go with the West Coast this year. Again, we're going to suggest down here, and then you can change these as you want to make them work. I'm just going to get through it so we can move on. Defense, you've got the 4-3, the basic 4-3. You've got the 4-4, the 4-6, which the Chicago Bears ran in their 1985 Super Bowl season. A 4-2-5. Rich Rodriguez likes to run that. Ran that at West Virginia and runs that with Arizona. A 3-4 and a 3-3-5 and a 52 defense. I've seen everybody use every single one of these. I tend to stick with the 4-3 or the 3-4 only because those are the ones that have lasted forever. And again, if you're weak at defensive tackle and strong at linebacker, then you may want to go with 3-4. If you're strong on the front line and weak at linebacker, particularly middle linebacker, then you may want to go with the 4-3. If you're completely weak at linebacker, but you're pretty strong across the front, then you may want to go to a 52. That really just depends on your preferences. I'm going to go with the 43, and I'm going to suggest to get everything up from the default that when I came to the screen, save that. And again, we're going to advance the week, or you would export. At this point, you're going to request your opponents, and you have 9 games. You can play a max of 12, and you can see your weeks that are open. So basically, you click on your week. You can sort alphabetically. You can sort by prestige rank, and then pick out that way. So let's see, week 1, and we're at 55. So let's play somebody close to that. And I have 5 home games and 4 roads. So we'll open on the road. Then we'll come in and we'll play a little bit easier opponent. Let's ask for New Mexico at home. And then I want an off week before we start this long stretch, an off week before. And I like week 15 open personally. Just if you do make the conference championship game, that's in week 16. So I like that open week to get healthy for that. Just something to consider. But you can't always call that. Sometimes you have to schedule a game that week. And we're coming just out of Michigan State. So we're going to go with, just pick at random. Let's take Cincinnati, and we'll take them at home too. So I've got my 12 games in. We'll advance the week. Now you'll notice right here, scheduling is weeks 3 through 5. We're in week 3. So you have 3 weeks to get your games that you need. So we'll advance the week. We'll get a couple of emails. All right, so let's see. Cincinnati accepted it. New Mexico declined for week 2. Virginia accepted for week 1. Those are the emails from the week before. All right, so we got 2 of our 3 games, so now we're up to 11. And I need to go back to week 2. New Mexico told us not that they wouldn't play us, so let's try East Carolina at home. Advance that week. Check for replies. They accepted. All right. So we don't have any more. We have 12 games. And you can see, even if you try to put in another game, you already have 12 games. You can play 11 or 12. You can play either or. If you have to play at least 11, and it won't let you play more than 12. So once we've done that, we'll just advance that week as well. And then that gets us up to assigning red shirts and depth charts. So again, you can go in and check your email. It tells you your transfer risks. So it gives you every player on your roster. And what's great is you can actually highlight this, copy it, and paste it onto your Microsoft Word or whatever notepad you use, and that way you have a separate, you can print it out to keep it handy. And basically what you're looking for is anybody that's listed as high or very high. So very high like that, high like this guy. These are guys that will highly likely transfer if you redshirt them. Okay, so Humberto Burke. Now what I want to do is, because remember we only had one really good quarterback. So here's Humberto Burke. He's a redshirt freshman, so he's already redshirted. And he's 3.6 rated, so he's the second best quarterback from a potential standpoint on our roster. So basically he's going to be my backup to David this year. So we're not going to redshirt him. We can look at players we want to redshirt, and you can also see we can cut players, change positions, or remove red shirts. So what I like to do here is I go by position. Now, you're only required to have so many players at each position. So like quarterback is 3, running back is 3, safeties are 2 or 3, cornerbacks are 5, for example. Kickers are 2 or 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these guys, and I'm usually going to sort by potential. And also I look and see if they're on scholarship. Now, if they're a senior, they're graduating this year. So even if they're the worst player in the world, it doesn't do any good to cut them because they're going to fall off your roster anyway. Sophomores and freshmen will not. This guy is a scholarship athlete, and he's horrible. So I'm going to cut him and free up that scholarship. It does give you a warning every time, so you have a chance to catch yourself. And this guy's not on scholarship, but what this comes into play is, let's say I have 4 quarterbacks, but the game only requires me to have 3. When I go to recruit a quarterback, he's going to look and say, well, you have 4 guys on your roster. There's not enough room for me, and that may affect you being able to recruit that player. So you always want to cut dead weight. So this is very important, and this is a really bad, if you're in a multiplayer league, this is one of the worst weeks that you can miss, because this is where you can actually really kill your recruiting for the next year just by having too many players on the roster. So this guy, for example, was a walk-on, so I'm going to cut him and get down to 3. Now, you'll notice this guy, watch, if I try to cut him, cutting this player would put the team below the minimum. So it will not let you cut that third string quarterback. So you have to make sure you cut them in the order that you definitely don't want them on your team, so you don't cut a better player and then get stuck with the worst player. All right. So we're done with quarterback, and I'm not going to redshirt anybody because I have to have 3. Same thing with halfback here. I'm going to go by potential. He's horrible at a 1-1, so I'm going to cut him. And he's not much better at a 1-3, so he's gone. And that leaves me with at least 3 reasonable running backs. And I've got a senior, so he'll be graduating, so I'll get his scholarship next year. You'll also notice GPAs. You need to look at that, because if you have a guy that's a GPA issue, he may actually be academically ineligible during the season, and you'll need enough people to fill the roster with him out for that 3 or 4 week stretch. during his academic probation. I'm going to risk it, and we're going to move on. I don't like this guy, and I would want to cut him, but again, you have to have 3 players at that position. So we're going to keep him. I tell you what, we're going to put a cut in here because it's been about 20 minutes, and we'll pick back up right here in the next episode. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.